Okay, so I decided to call this It Is Good. Okay, so first, but before I can talk about it is good, I really got to talk about evil. So this is, I want to start with a quote from C.S. Lewis. There are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. So I want to start with a question for you to discuss at your table. So I want to imagine that you are an evil mastermind. And we're going to see which table can come up with the best way to destroy a good fellow.
Destroy what?
So you're an evil mastermind, and we're going to see which table can come up with the best way to destroy the good person. Does that make sense? So we're thinking about what is the worst thing that evil can do to destroy someone. All right, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes. It's going to be quick, but just go around on your table and brainstorm with each other, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes.
That the ultimate evil mastermind has been
You wrote the
trying to
notes, right?
corrupt us or mislead us has been the devil and Satan. And how does he do that? He tells us we're not worthy, that whatever we're doing is going to fail. We can't go before God. We have all these problems. So he makes us depressed, he makes us lose confidence in ourselves, and then he's able to make us give up and say, I don't have anything to offer. So, is that it? Yeah, I think it. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if anyone.
Like he was the evil intent, he had the evil intention, then he would befriend somebody and he'd tell him that he was like convince him that he was supporting him in what he was trying to do, win his trust, in order to then suggest that he do something that ultimately would destroy him or really have a bad result. Yeah, it's about right.
Great.
And then Samuel said,
I was just talking more to that point.
oh yeah, Samuel was agreeing with John's.
But also with your point.
He was also agreeing with me. But you don't know what that is. Okay. So what I said, so to me, to corrupt someone, to make somebody evil, is to invade their heart so they don't love anymore. They become angry. So if I wanted to do that, the best way, if I was a 14-year-old boy and I wanted to do that to my parents, I would announce that I want to become a woman. I don't want to change my sex. Because I know that would really upset them and get them angry. That's what I would do.
So he presented kind of an opposition to John's idea, which was that only works if the person is susceptible to corruption, and brought up the example of Job. And so I brought up the example of, I'm experiencing that in my life today, where one of my best friends on the bike is trying to convince me to download all the dating apps and to have as much free sex as possible. But it's not working because, I'm not being corrupted to take that advice. So my friend befriended me, he kind of provided me support and trust, but he's kind of hit a brick wall because I'm not going to engage in that behavior. So it sort of works, it sort of doesn't.
Great.
Keep going, Sam. Keep going.
Anyone from these two tables want to share?
Deceiver in the garden. That's exactly what he did. Was he led Adam and Eve to disbelieve in God, to disbelieve that he existed, so to follow the same tactic to bring us to that point of non-believing. And Takashi mentioned the story of Job and how he was making all of his incredible friends to bring his faith. And I can't remember which race he said. Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, so that was.
Great. And then anyone from this table want to share?
Vision is give somebody a phone with TikTok.
Somebody else on TikTok.
Do you want to share yours too? Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Thank you. I think we have some decent evil masterminds in here. What I find is that evil is incredibly subtle, meaning it does not want to be seen. And so to see evil is, I find it's often easier to see it outside than to actually witness where evil plays a role in my own life. And so I want to, what some people alluded to is how evil puts you on a path to destroy you and have you feel like you're unworthy. And the word I want to use is to look for contempt. Self-contempt or contempt for others. So I have two men that I worked with this week and had a call with one of them where he was sharing with me essentially one of his most shameful stories. And when I listen to his story, I'm always looking for where can I discern the good is and where the evil is. And it's a very tricky thing. But I find that oftentimes it's hard for us to discern it within ourselves. Kind of like if you're sitting in an outhouse for a long time and it starts to smell pretty normal. But the person who walks in after you, the smell is so obvious, right? They're like repulsed. And so I find that actually it's very helpful to actually do it in relationship to help each other discern where's the good and where's the evil. So he was telling me this story, and there's obviously plenty of evil that was in his story of what he was so ashamed of. So much so that he just was feeling so much shame that he was feeling like that things would never get better, and that he would never be qualified for a good woman in his life, and these sort of things. But when I looked at his story, I could actually look and say, but your yearning really does seem good, even though it's been hijacked by something evil. And he found some level of relief that there is good in his most shameful story. And I talked to one other person who was saying, well, I really should just be a better person. I've got the Bible and we've got Jesus, and I just need to be a better person. And I asked him, when you thought that, what was the result? Did it help move you towards being a better person, or did it result in more self-contempt? And he's experiencing a lot of contempt for his wife. And he said he'll think on it this week. So when I worked with these two guys, I found myself that I have to be almost like a defense attorney against the prosecutor, which is the accusations of evil. And I have to look at where is the evil and where is the good. And it's a very tricky thing, because the nature of evil is to be incredibly subtle, and any belief we have can be hijacked. even if it sounds good. So in that second example, it sounded actually like a pretty good belief, like he really should just be a better Christian. And that belief, he has to really look at it and think, is this pushing me towards good, or is this pushing me towards contempt? So I'm going to share one more story, which is a story about me, which is going to be great. And I love that. My wife always walks out like at the right timing and then walks in at the right timing. Oh, hi. So I have this, last week, the house was abnormally messy. It's always messy because we have a 2-year-old, but it was abnormally, it looked like 3 bombs went off. 1 in the living room and 2 in the kitchen with just like food, all over, like dripping down, and the sink was like overflowing and, with dishes and just dishes everywhere. And I don't know what we had done, but it was bad. And I remember Marina was feeling some level of fatigue or a headache or something, because I remember I thought, it'd be really nice if I could do the dishes so she doesn't have to worry about them. So I go put Grace down, and as I'm reading Grace her story, I'm starting to fall asleep. Grace is not falling asleep. Grace is kind of like bouncing out of bed, and I'm like, Grace, do you want to try to lay down? That'd be really nice. She ends up going to sleep, and I'm sitting in her room, and I'm thinking, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to walk out of her room, go to the kitchen, and just knock it out. And I can put on my best music and get it done. And that would be just a really great husband thing to do. So, but then I think, but I'd really like to just lay down for a minute. So I just lay down in the dark room with my daughter, and 45 minutes later, I get up, and I'm thinking, oh God, it's like late, why am I napping? There's a nightmare in the kitchen, and I open the door, leave her room, it's like bright, so I'm like, feel like I'm entering a war zone, and there's my wife, diligently cleaning all the dishes, and I'm thinking, oh God, while she's working so hard, I'm like sleeping. So I say, honey, what can I do? She says, oh, just do the living room. I'll finish the kitchen, which was looking much worse. And I say, okay, I'm gonna do the living room. I don't know what came over me. I grab a blanket, I go into a fetal position on the couch, and I proceed to take another nap. Except I'm not tired because I already took a nap, so I'm just like laying there. And next thing I know, the kitchen is clean, and my wife is picking up all the toys from the living room. And I kind of pop up and I say, don't do that, I'm going to clean it eventually. And Marina says, well, it's going to get clean one way or another tonight, and proceeds to continue to pick up all the toys. And I just laid there. I was just feeling groggy and lethargic, and was like, and then I was getting mad that my wife is doing all the cleaning that I was supposed to do because I was going to be a great husband tonight. And I muster up enough energy to get out. I'm still wearing the blanket, and I pick up 2 books, I put them away, and then it's done because my wife had been cleaning for hours. So then I go back to the couch, and I lay there, and I'm feeling super crummy about myself, and I lose my vocabulary when I'm like this. I just can't even talk. I become like this little, ashamed boy, and I just look at her, and in my head I've rehearsed what I want to tell her, but I cannot say it for the life of me. And I muster something like, I wanted to clean more. I feel bad. And then my wife says something like, yeah, well, it's a little annoying that I cleaned the whole place while you slept there, but, it's fine. And she was like mildly upset, and honestly, yeah, I think it was in the right that she's upset at me just being a bit of a lethargic little boy. And then I say something like, I just am moping and whining, and I'm just really ashamed of that. And my wife looks at me and says, would you like an adrenal cocktail? And I say, that'd be nice. Which is essentially orange juice. So she makes me like orange juice and some other stuff, and she hands it to me, and I drink it, and I'm feeling so guilty. And then all of a sudden, I start to feel like a little bit of energy is coming back. It's date night too, by the way. So I've also canceled our date night by refusing to clean and instead laying down in fetal position. And then I start to become a little bit more normal. And I find that energy starts to return back to my body and my vocabulary comes back. So, the thing that I want to point out is this was obviously a very low moment in my week. The fact that my wife could be so good in the midst of me being so terrible helped me have a record. It took me about 15 minutes of me moping for me to get out of it. I just did my funk for 15 minutes. Before, it would actually take hours where I would just be laying there in fetal position. And I don't do this as much as an adult, but especially during my childhood, this was a common thing, and I'd take hours moping there. So, we all have a story, and within our story, we all have multiple stories. And my question to you is, can you look in your worst story and say, it is good? Not your whole story, but you can look at what is good within your story and claim, it is good. So when I look at the story, well, I think my wife graciously extending me an adrenal cocktail. I declare that as good. Me mustering enough energy and vocabulary to tell my wife that I feel ashamed. That little bit of courage. I look at that and I say, it is good. Me being super lethargic and laying on the couch in the fetal position, probably gonna work on that one. But in the midst of such an embarrassing story, I can look at little moments and say, it is good. What I find when I work with men, where we obviously, I work on sex addiction coaching, so it's a lot of the bad. But to look at little glimmers of, actually, it is good, changes people. The flip side is to be, I know we're discussing at our table that if you only say it is entirely good, it's evil for evil to get away. And then we collude with evil. So it's good to also discern where is there evil. But it's important where there's evil to look at where is there good. Because evil is twisting its way into goodness. I think the best way, if I were an evil mastermind, what I would do is I would get someone to think that all of their good, God-given desires and gifts, that those are bad. And for them to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think if you can't look at your life story and see where the good is, especially when you are, I'm going to say, angry and ashamed. These are just the two areas I notice the most. when I work with men. If you can't see the good, my invitation is to look deeper into your story because you do not know your story. If you cannot look at it and say, that part of me is good, you do not know your story. And to actually see if you can do that for especially your children and your spouse. Can you look at them when they are the worst spouse? When your children are throwing a tantrum and say, this is good. I think when Grace's tantrums mostly, I just think are funny. But I always think, it's great that she's willing to express her feelings with us. She feels safe enough to do that. Okay. That's it. So, my invitation to you to think about today is if you are a parent, to look at your children, and if you are a spouse, to look at your spouse and think, is there somewhere where you have simply deemed their fallen nature or bad habits evil, but failed to see the goodness in there? Let's close with prayer. God, thank you for this opportunity where we can come together as a community, where we can think about you, we can think about your goodness, and your kindness, and your love and your truth. I pray that we can be diligent in our discernment, that we can discern what is good and what is evil, and take another step to discern again what is really good and what is really evil. And I pray for your grace as we fumble through this and fail and succeed. And I pray that we can continue to step towards you and seeing each other and seeing ourselves the way that you see us. Amen. On you.
Amen.